The point is, when we so demonstrate the presence of God in our lives, even lost, unbelieving people will take notice. And Potiphar certainly took notice and elevated Joseph to the #1 position in his household servants. But then the fly in the ointment was the fact that Joseph was growing up. You know, he was 17 years old when he went out to find his brothers, thrown into the pit. We're not quite sure how much time transpired, but probably he was not much more than 18 or 19. You know, some of these 18, 19-year-old young men can really be a hunk, can't they? And, you know, you look at me now, and I know it's hard for you to tell, but I was like that. No, I never was a hunk. I'm telling you. I could always tell folks, you know, I was small, but I was skinny too. I tried to gain weight, I tried to build muscle, and nothing worked with me. Nothing worked with me. But, you know, I learned to run fast. That's the counterbalance to not being a hunk. But here Joseph, good-looking man, well-built, and Potiphar's wife. Now, we don't know her name. I guess that's a good thing. You know, if we knew her name, we would add her to the list of evil women in the Bible. Now she's just Potiphar's wife. You know, sort of like Lot's wife. I mean, you're known for being a temptress or a block of salt. Don't even have a name. The Bible writer wouldn't even give us her name. And yet, she pressured Joseph day after day after day. The first thing was just, you know, here's a handsome boy. He's the servant. I'm the mistress of the house. Come to bed with me. Have sex with me. Now, I want to tell you, our current day situation that is so sexualized is not any different than it's ever been. It's always been that way. It was that way here. I was very sad to see on a news report the other day that some 70% of girls in America today think it's okay to have children out of wedlock. Now, I am a strong proponent of life, the sanctity of life. And I'm glad that they're not killing these children. I really am. But it says something about the moral standing in our society when everything is okay. And if it's okay to have children out of wedlock, then that must mean it's okay to have sex anytime you want. You don't have to wait. Don't have to have any patience. You don't have to listen to what God has to say. Just old people like Brother Ed are the only ones that ever say that. And yet, our nation is crumbling because of lax moral standards. Not only in that regard, in so many others. You know, why do you think we have scandals in our political realm? You know, Alabama is becoming known for scandalous politicians. Well, the reason is they don't see anything wrong with stealing money and peddling influence. It used to be wrong. The law still says it's wrong. We still prosecute folks for that. You know, every one of them goes to jail says, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just doing what everybody else is doing. And that seems to be the excuse these days. Everybody's doing it, so therefore it must be all right. But Joseph had some good raising somewhere, because his comment to this lady was, your master, your husband has put me in charge of everything in this house but you. And you're his wife. How can I sin against God? Boy, what a statement. How can I sin against God? Here's this woman pressuring him, an 18-year-old, with all of the hormones burning in his body, and yet he says, how can I sin against God? He knew something about right and wrong, and he resisted her. not once but many times. Look at verse 10. It says, it came about as she spoke to Joseph day after day. See, this always worked with her husband. I guarantee it doesn't mean. When your wife says day after day after day, the same thing, eventually you're going to say, oh, I'll do it. Whatever the task is, whatever, that it works. You just, and so she just day after day after day. But he did not listen to her, to lie beside her, or be with her. Here's a young man who had some wisdom about it. Not only did he refuse to have sex with her, but he was careful not to be alone with her. Careful not to be alone with her. Did everything right. Did everything right. And seemingly it didn't matter. Because one day he went into the house to take care of some of the accounting business and no other servants were there. Joseph just got careless just for a moment. And she grabbed his garment, made the appeal once again, and he did what Paul told young Timothy to do, flee fornication. He left his outer garment and ran away. He did everything right. But he was punished unjustly. The punishment, I think, was twofold. Number one, the woman lied about him. She lied to the household servants and put the story out. Then she lied to her husband, and he became so angry that he could not even reason the situation. He just immediately had Joseph put into prison. Unjust punishment. And I can't help but to observe, reading about this affair, this Potiphar affair, that God's blessings on Joseph did not keep him out of prison. Did you notice that? Dr. Dobson, my great wrote a book many years ago on why bad things happen to good people. Some of you may have read that. I think it's certainly an observation that people have made all throughout time. And the Bible certainly is filled with illustrations of bad things happening to good people. Here Joseph is doing everything well. He seems to have matured out of that childish behavior that caused him so much trouble, caused so much division in his family. He seems to have borne up well under the tests and trials that God put in his way to mature him, to grow him up, to build him up for God's service, to prepare him for what God had in store for him. And yet, it seems that God had another test for him. Another test. One of our Puritan writers may have said it best when he said, it's no wonder God doesn't have any more friends the way he treats the ones he has. I don't think I would ever dare say that, but God certainly has treated me well. But haven't you noticed that our greatest spiritual growth generally takes place in times of adversity? So I think we can take some courage here that if we are going through difficult circumstances and we've done everything we know to do to follow the Lord, we've crossed the T's, we've dotted the I's, we're trusting Him, we're aware of His presence, we're totally devoted to Him as best we can determine that, and yet when the adversity comes, perhaps we need to be like Joseph and just meet it with grace and confidence in God. It just may be that God is working on you a little more.